Hello, and welcome to another episode of Disaster Empire Quick Views. This is the podcast where we talk to innovators and thought leaders in resilience. And I am especially honored to have Mohamed Hassan with me today to talk about ERM and organizational resilience. So welcome so much to the program. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for all, listeners to our podcast. It's my glad to be here with you, Ashley. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm so glad to have the audience here as well. So we're going to dive right in. And Mohamed, can you share your thoughts on organizational resilience?
To be honest with you, Ashley, the organization resiliency became very hot topic currently. And, the importance of organization resiliency is actually coming from the external challenges, some external challenges and internal challenges for all of the organization. So all of these challenges is actually the main drivers to increase the appetite for the organization resiliency. So let me start first with the external challenges. So as you know that actually that we are living in very uncertainty environment. There is a very rapid changes, tension, geopolitical issues, limited resources. Actually, this is enforce the importance and the need to implement the organization resiliency framework and concept into the organization. Another driver, which is actually the digitization. As we are living in a digital era, this is actually put a very a big challenging on the organization to keep the pace of the digital disruption challenges. So, and specifically for traditional organizations, this is a very big challenge because, there is a rapid technological advancements is happening in a very quickly manner. Cyber threats is one of the big driver. In order to keep your information protected, you have a very controls, cybersecurity controls and measures. This is a very essential part to the organization resiliency framework. Another also driver from external perspective, which is actually finding the right talents. Keep training your resources into your organization, minimize the turnover, and because actually you are spending too much time learning, educating your team to reach to the right level of education and knowledge, and then you are facing a challenge to retain them. This is one of the challenges actually is increasing the appetite for organization resiliency. Another perspective, which is the internal challenges for all organization. Most of the organization, actually, they have risk management, enterprise risk management. They have a business continuity manager. They have a CISO for cybersecurity, CIO. But actually, you can find all of them or most of them is working in a silo approach. So working in silo approach is not recommended. You need to work under one umbrella, which is organization resiliency, because actually there is a very tight integration between all of these areas. So if you agree with me, Ashley, you cannot start the organization resiliency without a solid ERM system in place. You cannot have a very powerful crisis management plan and business continuity plan without a solid business continuity management in place. Disaster recovery is very important part, and there is a tight integration between the business continuity and disaster recovery. As you see, there is a very tight integration, and this is why the organization resiliency is important, to collect all of these dots together and working under one strategy.
Absolutely. And, I think as you're saying, there are the external forces and the internal forces, right, that need to be addressed for overall organizational resilience. Yeah. And I'd love the focus on, the rise of digital services in order to service our customers and for many companies. And especially with COVID and post-COVID, we're definitely driving in that area. And And like you said, that increases the threats, definitely. But also having the right talent, the right employees within the organization really drives the resilience as well. Well, hey, I wanted to talk to you about a little different of an aspect as well. And that is organizational resilience and the importance of enterprise risk management. You've been working and talking about that space. Can you share your thoughts on that with the audience?
Yeah. This is very good question. Thank you, Ashley. So you cannot have effective organization resiliency without a solid enterprise risk management in place, because there is a certain intersection between both of them. By the way, both of them is sharing the same objective to manage risk and sustainability for long term for the organization. So now we have the same objective between both of them. So while the organization resiliency is actually the capability, increase the capability of organization to anticipate, respond, and adapt for any change as per the ISO definition and British standard definition as well. The ERM is actually a guarantee to the organization to implement the right framework in order to identify, assess, and mitigate the risk. So understanding the risk in a comprehensive manner is very important to put the right framework for organization resiliency. So without understanding the risk, I cannot implement the right organization resiliency and response plan accordingly. This is the first intersection. The second one, mitigation, the risk mitigation. Maybe the ERM is actually developing the framework to mitigate the risk, but the organization resiliency is about developing the response plan in case of a change or disruption. So it's actually incremental or incremental integration. It's actually, you can consider the ERM is a base for the organization resiliency. So there is also other intersection area like continual improvement, like the ERM. I have to continue improve and updating my risk register by any external and internal risk. I need also to update the organization resiliency accordingly. Embedding the ERM in all the organization management process, data process, reporting structure, information flow. Also, the organization resiliency is following the same approach. There's a lot of intersection between all of them.
Absolutely. Well, hey, so let's dive in a little bit deeper because I ask all of my guests, what does resilience mean to you?
If we are going to go for or refer to the academic or standard definition, so everyone and all our guests is actually know about this. But let me go from the practical side. Resiliency is not about avoiding or eliminating the obstacles. Is actually to develop the right mindset, the right culture, the right process in order to navigate into these obstacles in a positive way. So I'm not ignoring the challenge. The resilience, it's about facing these challenges or obstacles in the positive way in order to continue your business in the right way. So resilience can be on the personal level. You have to be resilient in your life. Increase the employees' engagement. I need to create the right environment in order to empower the staff, the team, in order to be more innovative, more resilient. It's about leadership. It's actually resilient leader is mandatory. I have to be a resilient leader. Following the traditional way of leadership is not the proper way during to the dynamic environment that we are living right now. The culture is very important, Ashley, in order to change the mindset for the organization. So resilience is a very multifaceted approach, is a dynamic approach. You cannot have one fixed definition for the resilience. This is my perspective, my understanding.
I think it's such a great point. And, it's good to hear that we're very aligned in our thinking. So for practitioners as we're sitting across the globe, right, and supporting various companies and organizations, as much as we can have synergy, right, in our approach. And I think it's such a great point that you raised, that we're not eliminating risk altogether, right? We're never going to be able to do that completely. There's always going to be those unplanned events and impacts, but really trying to build the organization so that it's much better able to withstand those impacts when they occur. So I think such an important point in this discussion. Well, hey, I'm going to ask your opinion now, Mohamed, because people are talking about organizational resilience, but we're also talking about operational resilience. In your experience, how are those differing right now?
This is very, very good question. By the way, if you're aware of the latest news or progress, I think you already heard actually about UK financial regulator is actually announced a policy for operation resiliency, which is actually enforcing all the financial entity to follow this regulations. So it's by the way, this is one of the driver increase the appetite for the operation and organization resiliency. So operation resiliency is an integral part of the organization resiliency. It's actually, there is no different. It's like ERM and operation resiliency. So while the organization resiliency focused on the entire organization level, external and internal environment, internal, external risk and factors, the operation resiliency focus on the day-to-day operation activity. So it's a very specific part, maybe related to the operational activity, how to continue delivering your critical product and services and keep your day-to-day operational activity during the disruption. So I can say the organization resiliency may be developing the strategic direction, the foundation, and the operational resiliency is actually about the execution and put this framework into action. This is actually the integration or the relationship between the organization resiliency and operation resiliency. So it cannot working in a silo mode. Mode is actually, there is a tight integration between both of them.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. There needs to be that collaboration. How do you think we can better encourage that relationship between those who are looking at risk, like an ERM, and those who are looking at resilience, which today could be those in the business continuity seat, right, or the crisis management seat?
I think this is the most common questions came to the business leaders' minds. So because actually it's like a competition between the ERM leaders and business continuity, disaster recovery. Who's going to lead this? This is a very good question. So it's not about leading this. It's, as you know, in the business continuity and ERM, the organization should develop a committee or a responsible leadership committee for these programs. The same should happen for organization resiliency. So organization resiliency is not eliminating any of these rules, by the way. It's actually empowering all of them under one umbrella on one integrated view. So my recommendation, as per the practical use cases, the organization should develop a committee, which is actually, you can say, a resiliency committee, which is actually gathering all of these leaders in one place and agree on one integrated policy, which is an organization resiliency policy. And thanks to ISO 22316 actually is providing some guidelines about this, how you can do this from implementation perspective. And you need to develop the collaboration, as you mentioned, actually map for the entire organization between all of these pillars. And also you need to maintain the rules and responsibility from resiliency perspective. So when the disruption comes or any change, how can the organization can be adapted? So this is my thought about this question.
Thank you for sharing that. And I agree that in order for resilience to be built and to really understand the risk and how it can impact the organization, it really has to be collaborative. But I'm sure someone will take the lead. So I guess that's up to the organization who's going to coordinate that. But hey, I wanted to ask you, because I haven't had a guest from your area of the world on for a bit. What are you looking at in terms of risk for Saudi Arabia, the Middle East? What's most concerning to you today? And really, what are you trying to do to mitigate that?
I think due to the location, the environment, I think there is some certain risk. Specifically for Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia now is ranked one of the top 10 or top 5 in the digital country. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, digital is one of the big risks to keep the pace with a digital disruption. I think this is one of the most risk, because actually they are very innovative. They are developing everything based on the digital perspective. So I think digital disruption is very, very important to and can be considered one of the risks. I think the fluctuation, economic fluctuation is happening, and currently you have a very, very scary fluctuation from currency perspective. This is maybe impacting the oil prices and so on. So economic risk is one of the risk as well. Maybe natural disaster, because actually based on the location, sandstorm, floods is actually one of the risk can also be tailored for or specific for Saudi Arabia. But to be honest with you, Ashley, as we are living in a connected world, I think all other risk can be impacted. Saudi Arabia can be impacted with, like cybersecurity, for example. This is very known. Everyone is actually facing this cyber threats and cybersecurity threat. So this is my high level overview about most potential risk can be specific for Saudi Arabia.
Mohamed, it's been great to talk to you today. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I think I need to give my guests some tips about the organization resiliency and how they can start. So this is because actually, most of our, audience, our clients, or even in the practical life, how can I start the organization resiliency? So this is most of the common questions came to me. So ISO 22316, Ashley, is actually, as I mentioned, both or developed a very good guidelines. And there is some certain disciplines or list of disciplines we need to consider when we are implementing the organization resiliency. Is about 22 areas that need to be considered when I am going to start implementing the organization resiliency program. So most of them is actually touching the organization or the resiliency part. And my recommendation before doing anything, I need to do or run an assessment on the entire organization to discover the weaknesses area that need improvement, because maybe some organization have a very robust business continuity management system in place, ERM, but they don't have supply chain management. They don't they are not resilient in terms of suppliers. So running the assessment at the beginning is very, very important to discover any kind of gaps I need to cover in order to complete the organization resiliency program.
Hey, how can people connect with you if they want to do that and have further discussions?
I think my LinkedIn profile is accessible for everyone, and welcome to anyone to reach me, Ashley.
Excellent. I know you're very active in your region, and I want to thank you for all that you're doing to keep your company safe and to share your insights with all of us out here. Is there a fun fact that you might want to share as we wrap up today?
Yeah, the fun fact, I'm planning to have some rest and going for my vacation, and I'm inviting anyone to meet me in my vacation.
And do you want to share where that is? Because I think some of us would love to do that if
Yeah,
we could.
I'm living very near from the pyramids in Egypt, so welcome to the Pharaohs.
That would be great. All right. Thank you, Mohamed, so much for being on today. Really appreciate you joining us on the podcast. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Excellent.